Hey, my beautiful people. I hope you are feeling blessed. I hope you're feeling great. I hope you're feeling unstoppable because we are unstoppable and we should be feeling like that every single day. If it's your first time tuning in, I want to say thank you for listening to me today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for the love and for the continuous support. I appreciate all of you. I am your host, Gloria, and you are tuned into True Life Talks podcast. Make sure you go follow me on Instagram and Facebook at True Life Talks podcast. Also, guys, click the link in the description below. It is my link tree and it will link you to all of my social media. All right. We are at episode number 2, guys, and I'm so excited because today's a little bit personal for me. And I'm excited to share this with you guys. I just feel like it's something educational and something that you can learn. And I want to talk about it and raise awareness because it's something that I go through, that I've gone through, and I know a lot of people are going through it. And what I'm talking about, guys, is anxiety. I am someone that does suffer from anxiety, and I have suffered from it since I was a kid. Children do go through anxiety, believe it or not. And I didn't realize that until a couple of months ago when I was reading an article that was speaking about symptoms that children had while having anxiety. And it struck me because those very symptoms were the symptoms I had when I was a kid. So I felt like it was important to speak about this because as a parent, if you are someone that doesn't have anxiety or doesn't know anyone that has it, it's very easy to surpass your child's feelings or symptoms when it comes to anxiety. Not of your fault, you're just not educated enough and you just don't understand what it is to go through that. So I just want to speak about that and hopefully we're all able to get on the same page when it comes to anxiety because I feel like we are very misunderstood. And I just think that everyone needs to know that, this is very serious and this is very real. And there's a lot of people that go through this. So as I was wanting to speak to you guys about this, I decided to do a little bit of research of myself just to get more information because I too wanted to know how many children actually go through anxiety. All right. So, for those of you that are not familiar with anxiety, anxiety can be described as a sense of uneasiness. You can be nervous, worry, fear. Uh, you fear that something's going to happen or it has happened already and you're just going through the motions. So, as I was Googling to search up information for the children, I came across the statistics and it stunned me because it's a lot. It's a lot. 7.1% of children between the ages of 3 and 17, which is approximately 4.4 million children, have been diagnosed with anxiety. Guys, that's not even counting the children that have not been diagnosed with anxiety. 3.2% of children between the ages of 3 and 17 years, which is approximately 1.9 million children, have been diagnosed with depression. If you're not familiar with anxiety, I'm going to say this. If you don't have a good therapist, if you don't have a good support system, if you are not mentally strong or mentally equipped, if you don't have Jesus in your life, it is so easy to fall into depression. And I'm telling you this from experience. Last year, I posted something on Facebook saying, if I didn't have Jesus in my life, I don't know how I would have gotten through anxiety. Now, I don't want to get into the whole religion thing because to each his own, right? And I respect everyone and their opinions and their beliefs. However, for me, I am religious. I do believe in Jesus and I am someone who prays. And for me, I felt like if I didn't have prayer or faith, there's no way that I would have gotten through anxiety, let alone the moments that I was in depression. So it's very easy to fall into that, if you don't have that support. Things that can cause children to have anxiety. You think, well, they're kids. Anxiety. What are they stressing about, right? Because stress is something that can cause anxiety. And stress is something that can happen in a kid's life. Well, we're like, oh, we're adults. We have all these bills. I wish I was a kid so I wouldn't be so stressed. Well, kids are stressed too, and it can be something simple. It doesn't have to be serious. It could be homework. It could be, being fearful of going home because of something. So, uh, that puts stress on a kid's life. What about they forgot their homework or they forgot something where they're not doing good in school? And I say school because those are the majority of where kids spend their time, where they can be stressed about friends or stressed about being bullied. And, bullying is a big thing now. And they can be stressed about so many things that we aren't aware of. Just think about when you were a kid. What did you stress over? And you can't say nothing. Something. It had to have been something. Somebody wasn't your friend or something. So that can be difficult for a child to cope with. A death in a family. As an adult, it's hard for you to cope with it. But just imagine a kid coping with a loss that doesn't understand why they're gone or how they're gone or what is going on. A serious illness in a family could definitely cause anxiety. I am someone that knows that experience. I had illness in the family, and that was just crazy for me. Violence in the family, abuse in the family could definitely lead for kids to be anxious, be nervous. Growing behaviors, learned behaviors. If you are someone that has anxiety and you have children around you, they too can develop anxiety from watching you. So if they see you nervous, anxious, like worried about something, they too can develop that because they're watching you. And kids are very smart. We know that. As a kid, I remember a couple things that caused me to be anxious. I remember something so simple as my sister's mom. Now, my dad raised me. He raised me and my two brothers. My dad has 8 children. Me and my two brothers have the same parents, mom and dad. So my dad raised us three the whole time. Or even with my other siblings, we were just always raised with him, right? So it was me, my dad, my two brothers, my two sisters, and their mom at the time. And I can just remember her saying, hey, we're going to my mom's house to go hang out. Now, I love her family. And I was so excited. And I had been like 8 or 9 years old. I was so, so, so excited because I'm like, yeah, we're going to go to her house. We're going to eat. We're going to have fun. She has a backyard. We can run around and da-da-da, right? So I was so, so, so excited. My stomach started to hurt. I caught the jitters. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? Well, obviously I wasn't cussing, but I was just like, what is this? What is this feeling? Why is my stomach hurting? So of course I told my sister's mom, hey, my stomach's hurting. And of course, typical parent, which I would have done too. Why is your stomach hurting? Go lay down. Maybe it'll feel better. But it wasn't that. It was me trying to process my emotions. So it's just as strange as it sounds. And I say strange because it's strange to me that off of something so simple, I caught anxiety from the excitement of the emotion and just not knowing how to process it. And my stomach was hurting. So it was like, wow, that was weird, right? Another another memory I have being younger, which this one I wanna say I spoke to recently with my father about, and this is just a life lesson for all parents, right? And none to my dad's fault because I love my dad. He's the most amazing parent. Not a perfect parent, but he did an amazing job. I remember I was like, I don't know, maybe 10, not too sure the age, but I was young. And I was just going through these moments where I was catching anxiety so bad that my stomach was hurting and my dad would end up taking me to the hospital. Now, obviously, at the time, I didn't know I had anxiety, but my dad was frequently taking me out, and I was having episodes, and I didn't know why. But my dad, being the caretaker that he is, he didn't really, he asked me what was going on, but he didn't wait for me to go into full detail because all he knew was that I was his daughter. I was having these stomach aches, and he didn't understand why, and neither did I. And obviously, he's going to take me to the hospital, right? So this would happen frequently, and they would just say, it's nothing, or it could be her period, or something like that. Well, I remember having a really bad episode one day, and my dad had called the ambulance, and they took my vitals while taking me to the hospital. And I remember them telling my dad basically that nothing was wrong with me, that I was just exaggerating because my vitals were fine. And my dad was like, "What do you mean she's faking? She's telling me she's in pain." Well, we took her vitals, she's fine. My dad, obviously, he's going to believe the doctor. I mean, not that he's calling me a liar, but, obviously, if a doctor's telling you there's nothing wrong with your child, you're like, all right, well, maybe they are a little bit exaggerating. Now, just to give you a little background, my family, not my family, well, I think a lot of families, not just my family, a lot of families, um, and I come from a Latin family. I'm Puerto Rican, so I come from a Puerto Rican background. And we weren't really too much focused on emotion. I think my dad's era, because my dad was born in the 70s, his era wasn't focused so much on emotion, right? They were focused more on survival and getting through their era. So in our household, we weren't raised so much on focused on emotion. We didn't struggle because we weren't focusing on surviving, but it just wasn't a focus point in our home. And which isn't my dad's fault because that's how he was raised as well. Um, so it's just that's in a lot of Latin homes, Hispanic homes. So my dad wasn't really aware of anxiety. He didn't know what anxiety was, or if he knew, I don't think he knew the depths of anxiety, right? So he didn't know what I was going through, you know? And it was just very, very hard uh, for him to understand why the doctor was saying that I'm making this up when obviously I live with him. I'm telling him. So he's probably thinking, oh, I'm exaggerating. That hurt me as a kid, And I didn't tell my dad that, and I didn't get in trouble. But, I felt like he felt like I was exaggerating a little bit. And I don't think that was fair to me from for the doctor to tell my dad that, because while he's telling my dad that my vitals are fine and that I'm exaggerating, my fingertips are numb, my heart is in my ass, my stomach hurts, like I'm woozy, like I'm going through the motions. My vitals might be fine, but that doesn't mean that my anxiety is, you know? And that sucked as a kid because you're going through something that you don't understand. And then the doctor is telling your protector that you're exaggerating, which my dad's not going to stop protecting me. He's still going to take me in. And like I said, I didn't get in trouble, but, I'm pretty sure he assumed I was exaggerating a little bit. So, just pay attention because, even though the doctor says these certain things, listen to what your kid is telling you because sometimes they're not exaggerating. These are things that they feel. You just don't understand it. So sometimes we have to sit down with our kids and try to go in depth. What are you feeling, or why are you feeling this way, or and they're gonna be like, I don't know. They might very well say that, but just try to see what's going on. I know it's so hard with kids nowadays, and I know because I'm a mom of three and I have a 13-year-old who is growing, and he doesn't like to speak a lot about his feelings. And that scares me as a parent, because we want to know how our kids feel, or what they're going through. And he's a teenager now, so I know feelings of a teenager, um, so I always give my son a talk, or my kids, and I'm like, if you guys don't feel comfortable talking to me about what you're feeling or what you're going through, I understand, because I'm your parent. And sometimes kids don't want to speak to their parents, and I understood that, because I didn't want to speak to my dad all the time. But I always let my kids know that there's an outlet. There's family members that love them just as much as I do. And I know and I trust them to give them the great advice I know that I would give to my kids. So it's very important, for them to have that outlet. And and I wish I had that outlet, and I know I could have had it if I would have spoken up about it as a kid. But because it wasn't something that was brought up in the household, I just didn't bring it up. So as a kid, I started learning how to sweep it under the rug, right? And that's not good. But when you are in a
Tapping into
household
anxiety,
and
being a teenager,
no one brings up, mental
so
illness
difficult.
or anxiety or any of those things, because they're not aware of it,
They're
then you just don't
transitioning
know.
into
So
becoming
it's kind of like
adults
you're
sooner
forced
or
to sweep it
later.
up under the rug, because
Their body is changing.
no one understands, right?
Things in their mind are starting to develop. They're becoming more aware of the outside world, more realistic with the things around them, you know? And that can cause anxiety. Things like body issues, you know, um, especially for women, you're getting your hips, your breasts are getting bigger, your butt, just everything. You're just transforming, right? Men, you start growing facial hair, your body too. You want to look nice or not, but you start recognizing that, especially when you're going into high school, because there's older kids than you. They're already developed. So you start getting that, like, am I good enough? Or, insecurity. That brings anxiety out in a teen, for sure. Peer pressure, the need to want to fit in, the need to want to to feel like you're someone by fitting in. That's stress. That's the stress. The anxiety comes out. Like, oh my God, if I don't fit, if they don't like me, oh my God, that want, that need. Bullying, that nervousness of being around someone that just bullies you, that's just mean to you. And it's not just the people in the school or in the outside world, it's the people inside your home too that could be the bullies in your family. And that's worse, because you got to deal with them. You can't stray away from them like you like. And that brings me to personal home issues. If you're having issues with your parents, or if your parents are having issues within themselves, or sibling, or whatever home issues, that can steer you away from paying attention in school, because all you're thinking about is things that are going on at home. Or when you're in school and you're about to go home, you have the anxiety of not wanting to be around those situations. So you start getting anxiety, your chest starts hurting, your stomach starts jittering. And that wears on a teenager. You start to develop relationships with friends, and potentially a boyfriend or girlfriend. And those bring out different anxiety issues that you wouldn't even think of, but it does. And for a teenager, especially someone like me, when I have my first little boyfriend, like, you want them to want you. Or maybe that was just me, you know? So it's that anxiety of worrying, like, oh, do they like me? Do they not? You know, even sexuality now. You know, kids are just afraid, afraid to speak or are confused about how they feel. And you know, all of these symptoms can turn into depression really fast, especially for a teenager. They're sensitive. They're figuring it out. They're trying, you know? And I know for me, being a teenager was an experience. It was challenging. As I stated earlier, coming from a family that didn't really show emotions was starting to wear on me because my rug was becoming so full with everything that I have swept under there that my mind was starting to go crazy, you know? And I lived in a household full of people. There were 7, you know? So it wasn't like I was alone, but I felt alone. And that's just because I couldn't express myself. I didn't feel comfortable expressing myself, which sheltered me from everyone. I remember like going to sleep crying, just sad, you know, and not really having the relationship I wanted with my dad, you know, because, and I say that because I wasn't open with him. So I feel like that daughter daddy relationship that daughters have where they tell their dads everything and, you know, they have that relationship, I didn't have with my dad. And I didn't feel comfortable approaching him about all my concerns and questions and issues I was going through. Because I too was changing. You know, I was becoming more aware. I was becoming more emotional. You know, and my mom didn't raise me. And in that time, it was when I really needed her around me to guide me and to, you know, give me that woman advice. And I didn't have that. And that frustrated me. And it would make me cry because it's like, it's not fair that I'm feeling like this. And I'm so alone. And I don't know how to sort out these feelings because I'm still a kid, you know? And I know it's not my fault of my situation, but I'm a growing girl, growing woman. And I know that not having my mom there, 13, 14, 12 years old, was very hard on me. You know, as a girl, we want that. So I didn't have that, you know, and I didn't have that relationship with my dad, that closeness. And so I felt so misunderstood and so by myself. And I felt like people didn't really know who I was because I couldn't express that side of me, or I didn't feel comfortable expressing that side of me. And that put a strain on my relationship with my dad because I became so resentful, like, and he didn't even know. He didn't even know that I resented him. But it was because you know, I didn't know how to express myself. And it just was, it put a strain on our relationship, and not to like an extent of like I was doing crazy things and we were arguing and stuff, because my dad did not play that. He was strict and of respect, and I know not to cross that line. And it wasn't nothing of me being disrespectful. It was just a strain in our relationship, as in I was just in my mind I was developing these feelings towards him that he had no idea. But because I didn't feel comfortable expressing it, it just lingered and it just grew stronger and stronger and stronger. And life happens, and I eventually moved with my mom. I was like 15 turning 16, and I hadn't lived with my mom since I was a little girl, so I really didn't know her and she really didn't know me. All we knew is that we needed to get to know each other. But at this point, I'm already older. So I already had developed these habits of keeping everything to myself. And, you know, so being with my mom, I thought was going to be such a smooth transition, such an easy transition for me, because she was a woman. She was my mom. She was the person that I've been wanting and needing for so long in my life. And I'm like, yes, I finally have the opportunity to move with her, and this is going to be so smooth sailing. It wasn't. It was harder. Because now I had to. She wasn't a stranger, but she was. Because I already had grown so much and matured from the last time I lived with her, that obviously it was like getting to know each other all over again. So I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell her exactly how I felt to the T. I would tell her some things, but I didn't tell her everything. And it sheltered me from that too. And, moving from the south to the north, two different type of people. Like, I had different types of friends up north than I did in the south. And having to try to not even fit into that high school world, but having to deal with that, and people thinking I'm country, and having to try to prove myself that I was Hispanic, which I was not. That kind of brought me an anxiety to an extent, because I was like, what the hell? I never had to go through this. Why are people like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I guess I was just not comfortable with the change 100%, especially like with the whole school system. Because even though I moved around in schools in Florida, I stayed in the area, so I knew people still. It wasn't completely strangers like it was in the north, so it was different. But I eventually caught on to my crowd, and that's where I spent most of my time. And I got a job at 16, so when I wasn't home, I was with my friends or working, and I hardly was home, because being home with my mom, it wore on me. And it wasn't that it was her fault all the way, but it was just because I already had developed this way of being. And so I just want to say, for the parents that have teenagers, it's not too late to sit down and talk about their feelings. And a lot of times they're not gonna want to. But do you know the satisfaction that teenagers get with knowing that someone at least cares, to know that if we do ever feel comfortable enough to open up, that at least they are there for us. And I encourage you, parents that have younger kids too, that if you've seen symptoms, nervousness, if your child's coming up to you telling your stomach is aching, their stomach is aching, and it's kind of consistent, then there could be possibly something wrong, you know? I just want to say, like, let's just, myself included, we got to pay more attention to the signs and not just be like, oh, you're exaggerating, or oh, you're doing too much, or no. If they're telling you, it's for a reason. And given, sometimes kids do exaggerate, but we gotta stop saying that all the time and just have that moment and sit with them and just, try to read them a little bit. We're parents. We know how to read our kids when we say certain things or we ask certain things. We can see their face expressions, and for the parents that have a strained relationship with your teenagers, trying to figure them out because they're difficult, and I know it's frustrating. Take a moment and think about how you felt as a kid, because I know that there's every person has had a moment where they felt misunderstood or they felt that feeling. And just think about how your child feels now. It's 10 times worse. Bullying is at its all-time high. Sexuality is at its all-time high. Finding out who they are. Being in this quarantine, more home issues are popping up. More arguments. Kids have to see that. Those are triggers. Triggers. And if they're not seeking therapy, or they don't have that support from family, because it don't only have to be home, it could be family. But if they don't have that, that lingers until their adulthood, and it puts an impact on your relationships even when you get older. It affects you. It affects me. It affects me. And I'm not mad at my parents. I don't hate them. I love my parents. I just know that they didn't know. They weren't aware. I don't want to say they weren't aware, but it wasn't that to talk about. Mental illness isn't a thing to talk. It wasn't a thing to talk about. It just wasn't. Anxiety wasn't a thing to talk about. Emotions just wasn't a thing to talk about. And not getting treated just lingers. Not getting the appropriate help just lingers. And when I was becoming an adult, different situations have happened in my life. I was becoming older, a little bit more wiser, a little bit more experienced. I had gone through some episodes in my life, and I was a little bit knowing how to control it to an extent, but not really. As an adult, still dealing with anxiety, I don't think we really know how to deal with it. We know how to control it somewhat, but not really. And it's crazy because I was just doing my research. I like to see numbers. I want to know the statistics. And it's saying that anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States. And it's so crazy to me that it says so common, because although it is so common, I feel like it's not taken serious. Like it's swept under the rug, by people being like, oh, you're too sensitive, or you worry too much, or, those things, instead of it being what it really is. And I was like, wow, it's so common, but yet it's so misunderstood. And I thought that was crazy. So it affects
about 40 million adults in the United States of the ages of 18 and older. Anxiety disorders are treatable. They are. And only 36.9% of those that are suffering receive treatment. Now, I know I fall into the percentage of those that don't receive treatment because I'm not big on medication. I'm not. I try to find different remedies that are natural, like crying. That helps. It relieves. It relieves the pain from my chest. Taking walks, feeling that breeze hit your face. Guys, going for a bike ride. I haven't ridden a bike since I was a kid. Now bike rides are amazing for me. Amazing. So those are some things I do. Writing. I know writing in a journal, putting your feelings down, because we often feel so misunderstood that we we keep everything and we bottle everything up. So writing. And I was a writer. I used to write so much poetry as a kid or as a teenager. And I know that was an outlet for me in that time, and I don't write anymore. I should, but I don't. I think I should try it. But those are my outlets. So that's why I don't do treatment. And I'm not going to say I haven't because I have been prescribed medication. Hated them. Never went past 2 days. Hated all of them because it's not for me. Now it is for some people, but it's just not for me. And a lot of those people that have not getting treatment, it's because they really don't know what the hell is wrong with them. They don't. Or they're in denial. And that's worse. Because then you always have an excuse or you have a reason or you know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe you don't know. This is what it is. This is real. This is a real thing. Because anxiety is mistaken as something that's I won't even say mistaken because I'm still trying to research this and I'm still learning. People think it's like, oh, it's a mind thing, it's a mental thing. You can control it. You can control it. And you're right, we probably can control it. But it's not something we do on purpose. You think we want to worry? You think we like to cry? You think we like our chest to hurt? You think we like thoughts to just pop up in our head? Because when you have anxiety, certain types of anxiety, certain things could pop in your head at any moment and you're not even freaking thinking about it. And out of nowhere, you just start crying. And that's something that happens to me. So I started, researching about the different types of anxieties. I just Googled anxiety and popped up different types of anxieties. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? Different types of anxiety. And there is separation anxiety disorder. There's specific phobias that cause anxiety. Social anxiety disorder. Panic disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder. I was like, what the hell is a generalized anxiety disorder? Well, guys, if you don't know, I'm about to tell you. Generalized anxiety disorder can occur at any age. The symptoms are similar to panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and other types of anxiety. And the symptoms for generalized anxiety disorder are constant worrying,
restlessness, trouble with concentrating, and that is all me. I have generalized anxiety disorder, and sometimes it can get bad. Bad. I worry all the time about things, people. I am the oldest sibling out of all my siblings, and there's a lot of us. I think my dad has about 8 kids, and I think I need to recount, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. That's the most. I'm just that, if you're an older sibling, I don't know, it's like automatically you worry about your siblings, right? But I've had situations in my life where when I was younger that I just had that mother instinct as a kid. And so I always worried about my brothers. I always worried about my siblings. So I'm a worry. I worry about my family all the time. My grandmother, in whom I'm tremendously close with. Tremendously. And she's getting older, so I worry about her all the time. I worry about my father. I worry about my siblings that don't live near me and that do live near me. I'm just a worrier. I worry about everything. My kids, my relationship, my partner, everything. I worry about everything. And I lose sleep over that because my mind is constantly going. Going. And I like to use the example of SpongeBob. If you ever seen SpongeBob, which I'm 31, most of you are my age, so there's an episode on SpongeBob where I don't know what the hell was going on in the episode, but I just remember this part where in his brain was himself, and he was sitting at a desk with a pile of paper, and it was like paperwork, and the paperwork, it was being tossed in the air, going left and right at the same time, like, you know what I mean, like really fast. And that is my mind. Those papers are my thoughts going right, left, really fast, just all getting thrown up in the air. I don't have a specific file for all my thoughts, so everything is just going full speed every day, all day. I have so many things I want to accomplish, so many things I have to do, so many things I need to sort out in my life, so many things I need to leave out of my life, so many things I need to bring into my life. So I just have so many things going on, I don't know where to put them. My thought process is so fucked. And it's like, whew, I'm so overwhelmed because I feel like I don't allow myself to catch a break, and I don't know how. My mind doesn't turn off. It doesn't. And another thing about generalized anxiety disorder that I am learning, and I don't know if some of you have experienced this, and if you have, I'd like to have a conversation about it. We could be doing something so happy, or just normal, watching TV, and all of a sudden, a bad thought of death or something in that range will pop up in your head of someone you love. That happens to me, right? And I'll start crying because I'm like, Jesus, why am I thinking this? I rebuke the devil in the name of Jesus. Why would I think this? And it's so crazy because it only happens, I have these thoughts with only certain people. And those people were the people that were around me that helped raise me, And it goes back to having separation anxiety. Like, she put it in a way that maybe I get so emotional when I have these bad thoughts about them because those are the people that I'm scared to lose. Because those were the people that were around me for so long. And I was like, wow, you have a point. And I never looked at it that way. But those thoughts I have are with those people. So I'm just wondering if there is someone that's had those same things happen to them. I'd like to speak to you. So, looking through all these disorders, right, for anxiety, that's how I was able to realize that I had the generalized anxiety disorder. And I was like, my God, this makes sense. And this has affected my relationship, and I know that it can affect other people's relationships too with their partners because you're not as opened when it comes to your feelings of things that bother you because you don't think it might upset them and you don't want that issue because being around confrontation isn't something we like, or we don't like upsetting people or annoying people that we love, so we keep those things to ourselves until it explodes. Or sometimes as adults excuse me, we just hold on to everything: relationships, friendships, relationships with our family members that are not good for us because we're scared to let go, or that nervousness of starting something new or not. So it definitely can affect your relationship, especially when your partner doesn't understand your anxiety. That can bring friction because we're emotional beings, and we kind of feel attacked sometimes, more easy than others, or a little bit more sensitive. It's not our fault, it's just who the hell we are. It could definitely affect jobs. There's been times that I've called out. I could not get up. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to see nobody. I didn't even want to get up. But I would manage to get up enough to take my kids to school so that I could sit in my house and sob and deal with my anxiety. And for some people, they lose their jobs because they can't get a grip on their anxiety. They keep calling out because they don't want to be there, or they leave work early. They can't deal. They don't know how. They can't find their outlet. They feel stuck, and people lose their jobs. It affects friendships, and I know it affected mine. I was going through something. I was dating somebody. We were in a relationship, but that shit did not last long, so I'll keep it as dating. And it was so toxic. And I knew it was toxic. And I didn't want to let go. But that was the first time that I let something go, not wanting, not ready to. Women, we tend to let relationships go when we're at our wits' end, when we wake up one day and we're like, this is it. I wasn't there yet, but I knew that I couldn't wait to get to that point. It was toxic. And I had a best friend. We were really, really close. Never argued about anything. It's so funny because we almost fought in high school. But she ended up being my best friend. And I'm the type of person, when I'm going through something dark, I don't like it to affect other people because I like to give off positive energy to the universe. And if I feel like I can't, then I stay to myself. I keep that negativity to myself. And I was going through something dark with this person. I was
in the transition of removing them out of my home, removing them out of my life, out of my mental. I was going through it. Amongst other things, amongst being homesick and wanting to move back to Florida and just a whole bunch of other shit. And I didn't communicate that to my friend. So there would be times that she would call me. I wouldn't answer. I wouldn't answer text messages or phone calls, nothing. Because I'm going through it. And she, to a point, knew that sometimes when I go through things, I don't speak. But I think in that season of her life, she was also going through things, you know? And it just got to a point where she felt some type of way and we stopped talking. Long story short, we stopped being friends because I felt like she didn't understand me or what I was going through or my anxiety and how it was causing me to be depressed. And at that time that I needed her, she wasn't there, you know? And she wasn't aware of how dark it was. I don't even think now she knows. And I know you're probably listening. And, no hard feelings. Years have passed by. And I can say that we communicate now. But that was hard. That depressed me. Losing that friendship depressed me. To the point that when there could have been a chance of us rekindling that friendship, I didn't want to. Because that hurt I felt, didn't want it again. But we're in a different space and people grow and things can always happen. Things can always change, and I always love and respect her for the rest of my life. She was a very good friend. And we were always there for each other. So it definitely can affect your friendships. Damn, I didn't expect to cry. Okay. Me having this anxiety and being the age that I am has intensified because of my position in life. And when I say that, I mean I'm 31. I have 3 growing kids, working a 9 to 5, didn't have a career set in stone. And it became frustrating because I didn't want to work this 9 to 5 anymore. I was starting to ask God, what is my purpose in life? What am I here for? I know you have me here for a reason. What is my reason? I love helping people. I love talking. I love telling my stories. I love giving advice because I've been through so much shit. Right? And it's always better to give people advice than to deal with your own shit, right? But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm going through these episodes and, affecting my relationship with my boyfriend, affecting my relationship with my kids because I'm there, but I'm not there, sometimes. And it was getting bad. I was losing sleep. I was going to my doctor a lot. I'm like, I can't sleep. She diagnosed me with insomnia. It was just that bad. I was like, what the hell? And one day in the middle of me having an anxiety attack, I don't know what came over me, but I went onto Facebook and I created a group. And it's called Anxiety Who. It's still up. So if you'd like to join, please feel free to go on Facebook. It's groups Anxiety Who. It's an exclamation point with an emoji of them rolling their eyes. And that was one of the best things I've ever done. because at that moment, that's what I needed. I was in the middle of having an anxiety attack, and I grabbed my phone, I created that group, and I stopped crying. Because I'm like, if I'm feeling like this, overwhelmed because I don't express my anxiety issues to my boyfriend, he doesn't have anxiety, so he doesn't understand me. He doesn't understand how emotional I am. So I know there's other women that feel like that. And I created this group for a safe space for women, and people started just joining and speaking about how they're feeling, what they're going through. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is my calling. I can help we can help each other, you know? And then that thought process, I was already watching podcasts on YouTube. I love YouTube. I was already watching podcasts. And then I had spoken to a good friend of mine who knows of a podcaster. And I had brought it up to her, and she's like, you know what? You'd be perfect for this. You're a mom. You're funny. You have a story. You should talk about it. And that's what I did. I DM'd her and I let her know my situation and what I wanted to do with my podcast platform, and she thought it was a great idea and wanted to help me. And she was launching this program called Idea to Launch, and it pretty much prepares you to become a podcaster. And she's so amazing. Her name is Carla Wilmaris, and you can look her up on IG. And she also has a podcast called Shit I'm 30. And she's just so amazing. She's super educational, super helpful. And she helped me in getting through this whole podcast thing, and like to where I am at this moment, which I'm still new in it. It's been such a relief. Like, I've been able to focus everything into doing this podcast, and it's brought my anxiety down so much because I was able to focus on something I really, really wanted to do. And I know I wanted to do this because every time I spoke about this, it gave me chills and it made me feel good. And I'm like, yes, I finally found what I want to do, you know? And so I just encourage those that are going through it right now, you know, especially with this pandemic, we're forced to stay home more than so, you know? And I just encourage you to do something that you really love. Step outside if you're feeling antsy, you know? And for those that don't understand, I hope that you do understand a little bit more now. I'm definitely going to be talking about this a lot more. And, you know, for those that have children, just be a little bit more attentive, a little bit more alert, and just speak to them and just, you know, ask them how they're feeling, you know? Those things help. Even if they don't respond, at least they know that you care. And I want to thank you guys so much for listening to me and for tuning in. I appreciate the love and support. Please make sure, again, to go follow me at Instagram and Facebook at True Life Talks Podcast. And again, I'll be leaving my Linktree link in the description below. That way you can go ahead and also see all the other platforms that I'm on. And again, guys, thank you for the support. And stay tuned till next episode, guys. All right. Stay blessed and stay tuned in. Have a good one.